Hi, I'm Rajiv Bhatia, Director of Alternergy. Welcome to the third in a series of interviews that we have conducted with a number of manufacturers from the solar PV industry.
Hi, so my name is Euan Anson. I'm the team lead for the non-distribution team at Trinasolar, covering North and Central Europe. We're here today to talk about Trina, the product, the brand, the company, and what we can do to achieve higher and greater results and volumes in the UK market.
Euan, thank you for coming and attending this interview. I wanted to go through what's happening within the solar PV sector and would like to understand your views on how you see the industry progress over the next few years.
Okay. I think without doubt we're going to see both European and on a global scale the further deployment and the growth of the industry. I think there is no doubt that renewable energy is the way forward. The obvious development that we see happening now is the addition of storage, battery storage systems. We see it on a residential, a commercial and a utility scale, where having the ability to store the energy that's generated from the solar systems and use it when required is going to make a fundamental change in the industry. I think more recently we're seeing a lot of technological advances on the module side. Cell technologies, increased efficiencies, increased outputs, and yeah, I think the future overall looks very good for the industry.
And do you see much changes taking place in terms of pricing? Because we've seen a massive reduction in the price point over the last year. Any visibility on what's happening in 2025 and beyond?
I would hazard a guess, and it always has to be a slight guess when we're in the industry. We know how volatile markets can be and how volatile prices can be. One of the things that we do see though that points towards a price increase coming into next year is the change in the export VAT subsidy available to Chinese companies. So as of the 1st of December this year, the rebate on the VAT has reduced from 13% down to 9%. And we expect over the next 12 months that will be gradually stepped down to a point of 0. So that will put pressure on pricing points. I think the other thing that we need to look at just now is when we look at the exchange rates on the currencies. So dollar to euro exchange rate at the moment has gone against low pricing points for the solar industry. So there's a lot of factors to take into account, but I think overall most of them do point towards some form of price recovery moving into next year.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question I wanted to ask you is, what do you believe are the critical factors for brands to survive and stay competitive going into 2025?
Okay, I think that there's probably two sides to this answer. I think we've got to look at brands in terms of where they've come from in the past. So we look at bankability, we look at longevity, we look at reliability, and we look at the current brand awareness as is now. But then the other side of that question is we need to look towards what is the company going to look like in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. I think from Trina's point of view, it's about concentrating on our strengths and what we're good at. And it's also trying to find additional options and additional technologies to add. So most recently you'll see from Trina that now we operate on a utility scale with modules plus mounting system. That mounting system fixed tilt or tracker, so we provide a full system solution. We also have utility scale storage, and most recently in H2 of this year we launched residential storage systems in both Germany and Italy.
Moving forward from that, obviously we have seen in the press recently a number of manufacturers have been struggling, and financial strength becomes a really important factor. Are you seeing any movement taking place with manufacturers and brands and the ability to survive in the coming years?
I think that we will see a period of consolidation within the market. I think the stronger brands will be the ones that have kind of diversified. So again, the brands that are not pure play module manufacturers but have different products available or different solutions available. I think the key to financial strength is having that diversified portfolio and being able to kind of ride with the market when the times are bad, because we all know that when the times are good, then profitability, bankability, reliability, as we've touched on previously, they are key metrics to gauge a manufacturer and a company with.
And are we starting to see some consolidation taking place already, or is that just at the early stages now?
I think it's probably at the early stages in terms of the manufacturing point of view. We do see some consolidation happening within the markets in Europe. We know that where the ASP and the pricing point on modules is right now, it puts a lot of financial stress, not just on the manufacturer, but also downstream into the distribution channel, the installer channel. And unfortunately, we have seen in some markets a consolidation of the installer base, and also in some cases the distribution base as well.
So the next question that I wanted to ask you was, what are Trinasolar's strategic aims in 2025, and how do they align with industry trends?
Mm-hmm. I think the goal for 2025 for Trina is that we need to be close with our existing customer base. We need to ensure that Trina as a brand across Europe, but also globally, remains one of the premier brands in the solar industry. And how are we going to achieve that? It's by working closely, as I say, with our existing partners. It's about understanding the different market forces, different market dynamics, and it's about making those changes now to be able to adapt during 2025 and beyond. Looking at the actual industry itself and the developments in the industry, again, we've touched on storage, solar plus storage. We will be expanding our residential storage system. So at the moment, we have Germany and Italy. The next markets that we have, we will be bringing residential storage into the UK. And I think when we have solar plus storage on a residential and hopefully a C&I level, then we can really start to look at the next evolutions of the energy matrix within buildings.
So are you expecting Trina to provide a complete solution right across the board, from mounting equipment to inverters, storage, panels, everything that's involved in installation?
I wouldn't say everything within an installation. What we want to do with Trina, and again, the strategic goal really is to double down on the parts that we're good at. So the idea will be to have Trinasolar modules. The idea will be to have Trina residential storage system. At the moment, we have a residential storage system that is available with inverter. The mounting systems that we have tend to be more on the utility project scale rather than the rooftop. So as I say, it's about trying to leverage where we have strengths as Trina, and then also partner with companies that may have complementary strengths to ourselves.
I'd also like to ask you if you are aware of any specific market shifts or innovations taking place within the industry, and how they might impact what's happening in the broader sector.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest change that we see really is digitalization. We've tried to digitalize our whole supply chain with our partners in Europe. So from product dispatch right through product delivery until arrival, it's going on that digitalization journey alongside our partners. I think also on the technology side, you see the same. You see when we look at whole house solutions, you look at whole building solutions. We've even seen the shift in the terminology between, DNO, district network operator, to DSO. And that just tells us that even the grid operators are looking now more towards a full system solution, rather than just an individual component part.
Some of the innovations that we hear about and are in development are perovskite panels. Also, back contact solar panels seem to be becoming quite a popular option, certainly on the residential side. Is this something that Trina is looking into or developing as we speak?
I mean, yeah, from Trina's point of view, we have R&D teams at headquarters in China that are constantly looking at new technologies and where we can take things forward and what is the next step. So we see a lot of different cell technologies at the moment. The N-type TOPCon seems to be the dominating cell technology in the industry. We do see people coming to market with back contact. We see heterojunction. And then we also have, as you mentioned, things such as perovskite. The question will be really when those technologies are fully proven and reliable enough in order to industrialize. If you look at Trina, for example, we brand our TOPCon iTOPCon. the I simply means industrialized because it's a technology that we find stable, that we can work with, and also that we see further developments coming with in the future. We will be launching a TOPCon Ultra, which is again increasing the percentage efficiency of the cell and therefore into the module from Trinasolar. That will come and that will increase power output of the modules. So, yeah.
We have noticed recently that Trina made an announcement of an increase in the efficiency of cell technology to 25.9%. I believe that's currently a world record, and panels at the moment are being manufactured at about 23.5% efficiency. How do you see cell efficiency coming into panels in the coming years, and where do you see the development taking place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We announced just recently that our teams in the R&D team in China announced a 25.9 cell efficiency, which was the new N-type TOPCon Ultra. So 25.9 with an N-type TOPCon cell is a new world record. So our team are very proud of that. And what we believe that really shows is that there is still a future for N-type technology. So we will see new cell technologies come to market. As we mentioned, we already have. We've seen different cell technologies from different suppliers and different manufacturers. The 25.9 is a laboratory efficiency, but undoubtedly it will lead to higher cell efficiencies within the module and higher power output. The question is when the next step change will come in cell technology. We did discuss perovskite, and again, we believe that's maybe five to 6 years away. And if you look at a lot of the media reports that we see just now, the predictions really are saying that TOPCon is set to dominate the market for the foreseeable future.
Are we going to see a 1 kilowatt solar panel anytime soon?
I don't see it on the horizon as yet.
Obviously, you'll know that one of the key elements that people wish to have addressed are sustainability and environmental concerns surrounding the solar PV sector. What has Trina done, and what are they doing to provide comfort to customers and ensure that they comply, or more than comply, with all of the requirements?
Yep. So from Trina's point of view, we've always been a company that takes very seriously the sustainability and the environmental effect of what we do in terms of manufacturing solar products and solar PV modules. It goes right back to the very crux where if we're providing a technology that is being used to decarbonize energy supply, then it only makes sense that that technology is manufactured in an energy sustainable and environmentally sustainable manner. So we evidence that by being Trinasolar, we're the first manufacturer in the solar industry to have a fully certified net zero manufacturing plant in China. So the modules that come from that plant we can show all the way through our EPD, all the way through our life cycle analysis. We can show the embodied carbon within the module going right back to the plant in China. What does that do? That allows us to provide documentation such as environmental product declaration. So all of our modules that we have in Europe now, we have EPD Norway, EPD International or EPD Italy. And what that really does is that allows people, when they're looking at systems and designing systems for the future, to understand the carbon impact of the product that they're selecting.
So when it comes to ESG, there has been a lot of media attention on a number of manufacturers in recent years, particularly with the Sheffield Hallam reports which came out. How has Trina addressed all of the issues that came out at the time?
So what Trina have done is we've moved towards a more vertically integrated model. So by having a vertically integrated model, we control more steps along the supply chain, and therefore we can provide more visibility through to our customers and to end clients.
Okay, and you've got all the certification and proof that's required to provide comfort to all of the customers?
Yeah, we have a process in place that we work with our partners in order to supply traceability within the module manufacturing process.
You'll remember that earlier this year, the Labour government, or at that point, the opposition party, had produced a manifesto saying that they wanted to achieve 50 gigawatts of solar PV installations in the UK by 2030, and was also going to commit to 70 gigawatts by 2035, which is something that was agreed internationally by the previous government. What are your views on the ability of the UK to achieve those numbers?
I mean, I think the targets are very ambitious. I think as an industry we've got to work together to get anywhere close to that. I mean, 50 gigawatts is kind of a threefold increase on the current deployed capacity of the UK. If we look at the number of MCS accredited installers in the UK now, roughly 1,200, I think, with the figures I looked at. That's simply not enough skilled workforce in order to deploy that level of capacity. So there has to be an upskilling process that happens. There has to be a training and onboarding process that happens. And I think we can only hope that everybody from government officials right down to industry professionals can look at that, can understand that, and can work together to try and address it.
And what do you think the government needs to do to try and encourage more people to enter the sector and achieve these targets?
I think publicity is a big point, if I'm honest. Lots of people understand buzzwords such as renewable energy, such as solar PV, such as wind, hydro, etc. But then beyond the buzzword is, what does it actually mean? And what are the skills that are required in order to enter that industry? So, I mean, you can tell from my accent, I'm from Scotland at the moment, and there's a big discussion that's ongoing with the Scottish government about how do they transfer the skill set from the northeast in terms of the offshore oil, and how do they retrain some of those engineers and reuse some of those skill sets potentially for renewable energy. It's one example, and it needs more focus, I think, from central government to take good practices and to apply those elsewhere.
Do you think a regime of incentives needs to be in place, or do you think the market should be left to its own self?
I think incentives in terms of company employment and upskilling is a good thing. I would tend to shy away from, especially on the residential and the commercial and industrial side, I would tend to shy away a little bit more from government subsidy in terms of, as we used to have, feed-in tariff. I think the issue with government subsidy is when you look at it from a kind of European or even a global perspective, it can actually be counterproductive for some of the main manufacturers to enter a market based on subsidy. Because if the subsidy is then removed again due to a change in government, due to a change in legislation, then we see the peak and trough, the boom and bust that we've seen with the solar industry in the past. I think it's a lot more healthy to have an industry that is self-sufficient and an industry that can actually succeed and grow under its own momentum.
Also would like to ask you what you believe are the opportunities for growth both in the UK and globally within the PV sector.
I think again we split it down into sectors. So we have a look at residential, and I think on residential there is the storage conversation that's going to lead to further growth. We already see system sizes on residential increasing in order to support a residential storage system. So whereas we used to have 4 kilowatt was the go-to because of the government subsidy, we're now seeing even in the UK 6, 7, 8 kilowatt systems in order to co-locate a battery storage system. So there's definite growth in the residential sector that's there. There's a real buzz at the moment though around about the commercial and industrial, the C&I market, and we see that both in the UK and also if we look at mainland Europe, where we see the EU legislation that's coming in for decarbonisation and net zero. There's a lot of push towards commercial rooftops having solar deployed on them, and it makes sense. You know, we just look at the economies of scale. The rooftops are larger, the tenants of those buildings or the owner-occupiers of those buildings tend to be bigger energy users. It's where some of the biggest benefit can really be found. And the other good thing about the economy of scale is when you look at it on a financial payback, because the system is bigger, sometimes the actual payback for the end client can be smaller as well.
Is that something you're seeing right across the board in the UK, globally as well?
Yes, in almost all of the I would say the Western economy countries that we see in Europe, you definitely see a growth in the C&I. People are trying to move away from the volatility of grid price. People saw what happened during the pandemic. People also saw what happened during the energy crisis with the war with Russia-Ukraine. And people have tried to move away from dependency on the fossil fuels. So yes, we see in almost all countries across Europe that there is a growth in the commercial and industrial sector.
The next question I want to ask you is, how important do you feel it is to have strong collaboration with distributors like Alternergy?
Extremely is the simple answer. So much so that Trina has had a very robust distribution partner strategy for a number of years now. Even so much so that we've seen it replicated by some of our competition. But in all honesty, yes, distribution is a key part of the business for Trina across Europe. We mentioned earlier 1,200 MCS accredited installers just in the UK alone. For us to be able to access those installers to provide distribution on product, but also to provide product updates, pricing updates, market updates, it's impossible for us to do that as a manufacturer without the support of our distribution partners.
Finally, I'd like to ask you if you wish to add anything further about Trina's approach to the future.
I think from Trina's point of view, we've touched on most of the points, but we're definitely looking to diversify our portfolio of products. What we want to do from Trina's point of view is become more of a solution provider rather than just simply a hardware provider. And that really comes from the R&D that's happening at HQ in China at the moment. So from storage, as we say, to tracker systems, to potential even for green hydrogen further down the line. There's a lot of different energy sources that are being looked at to try and find the best fit for the market as it sits right now.
So is Trina looking to design software as part of its overall solution?
Yes. So again, go into the utility and the tracker side. We have the Trina SuperTrack, which is an algorithm that was developed really to increase the yield and the output of systems. So instead of a tracker system simply just tracking the sun, what this algorithm does is it will actually look at the production front side and the production rear side on a bifacial module, and it will then track based on the weather data for the coming hours, for the coming days, the best possible angle in order to generate the most energy overall. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just the front side generation, but when you factor in front and back side together, there are times when changing the angle of a tracker, you can actually provide more overall benefit.